their community in northern Mexico and deep South Texas. Their norteño music and weekly mass were also European, if flavored with native spice. One of the worst insults was indio. Everyone swore their ancestors were pure Spanish. Even though the stories my grandparents, aunts, and uncles told me when I was a child were thick with local lore, strange boogeyman, and wailing women, no trace remained of the old gods, the ancient priests, the vaunted heroes of Mexico's preColumbian past. In school, I was taught, like my father, the myths of the Norse, the Egyptians, the Romans, and especially the Greeks. I devoured the Odyssey, hungry for those Bronze Age sensibilities, that interweaving of human and divine. On my own, I read other great epics of Western mythology, the Iliad, the Aeneid. I widened my net, plunged into India and its Ramayana, sought out the Sunjata of West Africa. But it wasn't until I took a world literature class in college that I read a single Aztec or Maya myth. Amazing. I had attended schools just miles from the Mexican border, but not one of my teachers had spoken of Quetzalcoatl or Itzamna, of Cihuacoatl or Ixchel. My family also knew nothing of these Mesoamerican gods. Something important had been kept from me and other Mexican-American students. At first I was shocked and a bit angry, yet who could I blame for 5 centuries of syncretism and erasure? Rather than lash out in response to the loss I felt, I began to scour the local libraries for every book I could find about pre-Columbian Mexican myths. In the end, I realized it was my responsibility, knowing of this lack on my part, to reconnect with that forgotten past. That duty to the history of one's people has never been better expressed than in one of the few remaining poems of the Maya from the colonial era manuscript Songs of Xibalche. It's vital we never lose count of how many long generations have passed since the faraway age when here in this land lived great and powerful men who lifted the walls of those cities, the ancient, awesome ruins, pyramids rising like hills. We try to determine their meaning here in our humbler towns, a meaning that matters today, one we draw from the signs those men of the Golden Age, men of this land, our forefathers, urged us to seek in the sky. Consecrated to this task, we turn our faces upward as darkness slowly falls from zenith to horizon and fills the skies with stars in which we scry our fate. I found a lot of meaning in those scattered myths. They helped me through some very dark moments in my life. In time, I became a school teacher, then a university professor. Though no standards required it, I did my best to share the heritage I had rediscovered with my students. My passion for our lost past drove me even further. I began to study Mayan and Nahuatl, wanting to decipher the original indigenous text myself without the filter of a translator's voice. The difficulty was that so much had been destroyed. The conquest not only decimated the native population of Mexico, it also eviscerated their literature, their history. Conquering soldiers and zealous priests had burned many of the indigenous manuscripts, and converted native minds shrugged off the lore of millennia. Though some Spaniards and mestizos sought to preserve what they could of the venerable old words, setting down songs and sayings using the foreign alphabet, the damage had been done. Today, we cannot just pick up the indigenous equivalent of the Odyssey and read it. Beyond the Popol Vuh, a Quiché Maya text from Guatemala, no such work has survived in Mesoamerica. What we have are stories and fragments of stories, preserved piecemeal across multiple codices and colonial histories, or passed down word of mouth for centuries in remote communities. As a result, the work of a chronicler or teacher is made very difficult. We have no cohesive narrative of Mexico's mythic identity, no mythological history to rival other classical epics. As I pondered the dilemma, I saw a need for an exciting fusion of the different stories, one that could make Mesoamerican mythology come alive for a Western audience, the way William Bucks' abridged take on the Ramayana